Dixie here. Today I want to cover some questions about finances while hiking the Appalachian Trail. So probably the two most common questions I get related to this topic are how much does it cost to hike the AT and how much money should I save up? So the easiest answers are it depends and as much as you can. I know that's not entirely helpful, so let's get into it a little bit more. Basically, think about if you have two families that are going to take a vacation and they're going to Disney World. How much is it going to cost? Well, for each family, it's probably going to be a little bit different. One family may stay, a little bit further down the road, not so close to the park, and one family might stay, at a resort right there at the park. One may bring food in a cooler to go out of the park and eat lunch, and the other one may eat the expensive, hamburger and french fries in the park because they might be like, if we're going to do vacation, we're going to do it right, and we're just going to have fun and not worry about money. So it's the same thing with hiking the Appalachian Trail. So you've got two hikers, and they're going to have completely different budgets, but I'll go ahead and give y'all, kind of a baseline to go by. Each year there are several hikers who end up having to get off trail because of poor budgeting, and I don't want that to happen to y'all. So I'm going to go ahead and cover most of the bases that you need to think about while you're preparing your budget, for a 6-month period having no job. The first category you should probably consider, and probably the least fun category to think about, is your off-trail expenses. So even though you're out there having the time of your life on the AT, in this life-changing experience, the world's going to keep on spinning back home. So you've got to make sure all your bases are covered and your bills are paid. This category especially will be different for everyone. I don't know what you've got going on at home, what kind of debts you have, what kind of bills you have, but there are some ways to minimize some of that. First, for you homeowners, think about renting your house out. I know that sounds crazy, but you're going to be gone for 6 months. There may be, somebody that's moving to town, doesn't want anything permanent or tying them in, and they're looking to buy in the future, but they don't want to buy something sight unseen, so they're just looking to rent for a small period of time. I mean, there are crazier things that have worked out. If you rent, consider leaving your belongings, well, first of all, culling them, because I promise you won't want as much stuff as you have right now when you get done through hiking. So consider, minimizing the belongings that you have and keeping them at some relatives or friend's house. Maybe somebody has a garage you can use. And worst case, a storage unit, because a storage unit is going to be a lot cheaper than renting a house or an apartment. Your car. So I know several hikers from 2015 who leased their car out for the 6-month period. You can consider canceling your car insurance. I did that while I was gone. I knew my truck wasn't going to be driven, so why continue paying on it? Some people did prepaid cell phones. I didn't do that. I wanted to keep my iPhone and I wanted to keep my service from being disconnected, but some people do get the little prepaid phones, so they're not making monthly payments, and they're able to make minimal contact, because you're not going to be using it unless you're doing like a blog or a vlog or something like that. You're not going to be using it near as much as you would in everyday life. And for those of y'all who are like me, you've got a student loan that's been around long enough that it's like a pet and should have a name. You can defer it. I'm not saying that that's the best thing to do financially. In fact, I'll tell you it's really not. But it is an option, and I guess there are some credit card companies that let you do that. Again, I'm no financial advisor. I'm just saying that that option exists. And for those of y'all who are looking for a total life-changing experience and you're just going all out, you can always sell everything and use that money towards your thru hike. And then you don't have to worry about, any stuff or belongings to come back to. Once you have enough money, you think to cover the bases of things at home, you need to start considering gear. And this is something you can actually, start piecing together a little bit at a time. My gear selection, which I have a video on here of my gear that I used on the AT, and also a gear list on my blog. But my gear ended up running me about, it was between $1,000 to $2,000, pretty close to $1,500 or $1,600. And I started from square one. I did not have the most ultralight backpacking gear, the fanciest of the fanciest or anything like that. But I did start from square one and had to piece it all together because I had never been on an overnight backpacking trip. While I did skimp on some things and kind of cut corners, on cost and everything of gear, the 3 things that I would recommend not skimping on if you can afford good quality stuff is your sleeping bag, your shelter, and your pack. That's not to say that your gear is going to make you or break you. There's a lot more to it than that. I know a fellow thru hiker that made it with a pack that probably cost about I don't know, somewhere around $100, and a tent that was $50, and he made it the whole way. So it's not to say that you can't do it with less expensive gear, it's just typically the less expensive gear is going to weigh more. And post-hike, you got to think about how much cushion are you going to need once you finish the trail. Do you plan to go, you know, take a week at the beach to chill out or relax, or are you going to jump right back into a job? So you need to, you know, think about that and figure out how much cushion you're going to need once you finish the trail. That's pretty much it for off-trail expenses. So now on-trail expenses. It's a lot more fun to think about. You got to think about food, and not just resupplying in town and the food in your pack, but food like steaks that you want and you crave for a week when you get into town. Are you going to be able to resist the temptation of in-town food and, you know, only eat stuff that you can pack out onto the trail? Or, you know, are you going to want to eat several good meals in town? Also, the food that you have in your pack, are you going to be eating ramen noodles and pasta sides and rice sides, or are you going to be, you know, eating the fancy backpacker meals? Lodging. You're like, what do you mean, Dixie? I'm going to be sleeping in my tent. Yeah, and then you're going to get into a town and you're going to see a Motel 6 and you're going to think of the glorious bed that's in the motel room that you can just lay down on and prop your feet up on some pillows. Will you be able to go, no, I'm going back to the trail? Are you going to want to stay in town and, you know, take a zero and relax? Gear replacement. And you're like, well, I already have my gear. All right, well, you're also going to need new pair of trail runners or boots, several of those. You might end up tearing up your water filter, or it might get lost, stolen, whatever. Your pack may tear up. The shoes that you thought were perfect for your feet actually don't fit you, and you know, you didn't even get one good use out of them. Maybe you get a huge hole in the side of your tent and it has to be repaired, or all kinds of things can happen. But unless you have been on overnight trips and you are 100% sure that your gear is going to work for you, and even then, I bet you're still going to have replacements. But I would factor in some kind of money and give yourself some kind of cushion for a replacement, and you're going to have new footwear. I mean, otherwise it's really kind of dangerous because you can end up with plantar fasciitis, which is no fun. Transportation. How are you going to get to and from the trail when you're going to town to resupply? Are you comfortable with hitchhiking? Or are you going to always want to try to get a cab or a shuttle? Because the transportation costs will add up pretty quickly. And then also transportation to the trail and from the trail, you know, when you start and finish. And then side trips. I went to New York City and Washington, D.C. during my thru hike. You know, I didn't really plan those things, but the opportunity presented itself and I went for it. So are you going to budget for opportunities like that? Or are you just going to say, no, I'm sticking to the trail, and then, you know, don't regret your decision later? And then emergencies. Unfortunately, emergencies happen. You know, things happen, and you may end up having to travel home for some reason and then back to the trail. And it would just be really unfortunate for all of the effort and planning and saving up and hard work that goes into planning your thru hike. And then because of an emergency where you had to travel home, now you don't have enough money to finish the trail. So it's definitely worth it to allow yourself some cushion for that. So how much does all of that add up to as far as on-trail expenses? Well, it's going to be different for every person, again, just based on, you know, your level of comfort. Now, not including like your side trips and your emergencies and things like that, it's said that you should allow for resupply and food and lodging and all of that stuff about $1,000 a month. And I found that to be true. I was on the trail for a little over 6 months and it pretty much lined up. I know it can be hard to start saving money, and, you know, especially for something this massive. But start today. Start living below your means. I still drive the same crappy truck that I've had for a long time. You know, I work several jobs, get a part-time job delivering pizzas if you have to, you know, just whatever it takes to make it happen. And it can seem kind of impossible, but I promise, if I can make it happen, you can make it happen. If you have any questions about finances on the AT, just comment below and I'll try to get to those. I know that it's pretty scary thinking about not having a job for 6 months and, you know, kind of the financial planning part of it. So I'll be happy to try to answer your question. And if you'd like to see a complete financial breakdown, I went through everything on my bank account after I got back all my statements and split it all up into different categories and stuff. And I have that financial breakdown in my ebook. And if you want to purchase that, you can click the link that pops up at the end of this or in the info below. And again, I hope that was helpful, and we will see y'all next time. Okay, so I am here at Amicalola State Park, And there's this nice little compartment overhead, so that's the opening, where you can put like a headlamp